Jenny stood frozen over her suitcase, the quiet in the room almost deafening. 4 years, India had been her dream, the place she had crossed oceans for, but today it felt like a trap. Sumit didn't understand what was happening. He had just poured 2 cups of chai, humming softly, expecting her usual smile, her usual warmth. Instead, he found her trembling hands hovering over neatly folded clothes. "Jenny, what are you doing?" His voice cracked. Panic laced every word. He stepped closer, still holding the cups, but she barely noticed. Cameras rolled, capturing every subtle move, every second of the silence that suddenly felt heavier than anything either of them had endured. Jenny's lips parted, her voice a fragile whisper. "I'm going home." Home. The word hit Sumit like a physical blow. His hands froze, cups tilting, spilling a few drops of chai onto the table. "Home? This is your home," he managed, but the disbelief in his tone was clear. He took a cautious step forward, hoping she was joking, hoping it wasn't real. Her eyes met his, glossy with unshed tears, and in that moment he knew it wasn't temporary. She wasn't storming off in anger. She wasn't negotiating. She wasn't begging for peace. She was done. Every object around them carried memory. The teal blouse she packed was the one she wore on her first trip to India for him. The small Ganesh statue on the shelf, the scarves he had gifted, the silver ring from their first on-camera reconciliation, all symbols of years spent loving, hoping, and fighting. And now each piece silently screamed finality. Sumit's voice rose, shaking, almost breaking. "Did we fight? Did someone say something? Tell me what happened." Jenny shook her head. "No. I'm just exhausted. I've given everything. I can't keep doing this." He dropped the cups onto the counter, hands trembling. He crouched slightly, reaching for hers. "You have me. I love you. We survived everything. Don't leave me." Her hand lingered in his for a heartbeat, then she gently pulled away. "I've survived everything for us. Now I have to survive for me." Imagine giving your heart, your life, your entire decade to someone, and still realizing love alone isn't enough. What would it take for you to walk away from a life you built with someone you love? Sumit's knees weakened, his voice dropping to a whisper. "And you're sure? This isn't just a moment?" Jenny's shoulders sank, tears spilling freely. "I'm sure. I've made peace with it. It's time." Every second stretched unbearably. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, as if the walls themselves were mourning what was ending. Cameras caught the faint trembling of her hands, the quiet gasp of his chest, the way love and despair collided in a single unspoken truth. Sometimes even the strongest love can't survive what life throws at it. And as she finally zipped the suitcase closed, Sumit's panic escalated. Could he stop her, or had the moment already passed, slipping forever through his fingers? Jenny's hands hovered over the suitcase again, but this time the memories they held pulled her back years. Every folded blouse, every scarf, every little trinket wasn't just fabric or metal. They were reminders of battles fought quietly and loudly, wins and losses both visible and invisible. Crossing continents for love hadn't been easy. Every visa delay, every tense conversation with Sumit's family, every minor argument had slowly chipped away at her energy. The first time she arrived in India, everything had shimmered with possibility. Colorful streets, bustling markets, the excitement of a culture she had dreamed of exploring. She had thought love would smooth over every obstacle. But hope, as she learned, can be cruel when reality refuses to bend. Family dinners that should have been warm turned icy. Questions about her intentions became accusations. Cultural expectations became invisible walls. And somewhere along the way, she stopped recognizing the girl who once arrived with wide-eyed wonder. The Ganesh statue on the dresser had been a gift from a neighbor, an acknowledgement that she had brought something good into their lives. The scarves Sumit had picked up at small deli markets weren't just accessories. They were proof that even in chaos, someone had seen her, cared for her, remembered her. The silver ring from their first on-camera reconciliation sat heavy in her hand. It had symbolized hope then. Now it symbolized the weight of unfulfilled promises. Human behavior is strange in love. People hold on long after it's logical to stay, clinging to memories, routines, and potential. Jenny's struggle wasn't a lack of affection. It was the endless cycle of hope and disappointment that slowly erodes the strongest hearts. You see it in the way she packs, stops, folds something carefully, only to pause and let the weight of years sink in. Every fold of fabric, every item placed in the suitcase is a silent negotiation with herself. How much can I give before there's nothing left to give? Sumit, meanwhile, hummed softly in the kitchen, completely unaware. The way he moved, calm and unsuspecting, made the room feel like a powder keg. He had no idea how close they were to emotional explosion, how long the dam had been holding back her exhaustion. The juxtaposition was brutal. One person ready to flee to preserve themselves, the other blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beside him. Jenny's hands paused again, lingering over a scarf Sumit had gifted months ago. Could she really leave everything behind, or was there still a part of her hoping he'd notice before it was too late? The air was thick. Cameras captured nothing but tension, the silent moments that speak louder than arguments, louder than tears. Every heartbeat echoed questions the audience couldn't yet answer. How did it come to this? Could love survive years of compromise? And more pressingly, would Sumit ever see what was right in front of him before the suitcase closed for good? Jenny's hands trembled as she zipped the suitcase closed. Each motion was slow, deliberate, as if dragging out the last possible moment before reality struck. Her lips quivered, her eyes glossy, but there was a strange calm in her movements. Not resignation, not despair, but a quiet resolve that this was the only way forward. She took a shaky breath, pausing mid-fold to glance at Sumit, who stood frozen in the doorway. His eyes were wide, disbelief written across every line of his face. Sumit's mouth opened, closed, then opened again, as if searching for words that could stop the inevitable. "Jenny, wait, you're leaving?" His voice wavered, barely holding on to hope that she might be joking, that this wasn't real. She shook her head, a single decisive movement. "Yes, I've made my choice." The room fell silent. The only sound was the soft rustle of clothes as Jenny carefully tucked away each item. Her hands lingered over the Ganesh statue, the scarves, the silver rings, small tokens of hope and love, before setting them gently in place. Every object was a memory, a symbol of the love she had fought for, the dreams she had believed in. And now they were reminders of what love had cost her. Sumit stepped forward, panic rising. "But I love you. I can fix this. I'll talk to my parents. We can go anywhere, start over." His voice cracked, desperation spilling into every word. Jenny's gaze met his, unwavering. "It's not about love anymore. I love you. Always. But I can't keep sacrificing my peace for a fight that doesn't end. I've given everything. And now it's time to give to myself." Human behavior in love is complicated. We cling to people not because we're blind to their flaws, but because we hope time and effort will heal what seems broken. But sometimes, the weight of compromise and the drain of endless obstacles make even the strongest hearts crack. Jenny had reached that point. Her mental health, her sanity, her sense of self, all demanded action even when her heart screamed otherwise. Sumit's hand shook as he reached toward hers. "You can't." "I can't," his voice faltered, disbelief mixing with anguish. He wanted to argue, to negotiate, to delay, but the calm certainty in her eyes shut down every possibility. "Would you have the courage to do the same? To step away from love that drains you, even when the heart still aches for it?" Jenny took a final breath, squared her shoulders, and zipped the suitcase fully closed. Every fold, every careful tuck, every hesitated moment had led to this decision. Sumit's knees weakened, his disbelief now fully mingled with grief. The room itself seemed to hold its breath, the cameras capturing a silence louder than any argument. She didn't raise her voice, didn't plead or justify. Her behavior, measured yet resolute, spoke volumes. This was the line she would not cross for anyone, not even the person she loved most. And in that quiet finality, the emotional stakes reached their peak. Sumit realized, painfully and completely, that some decisions once made cannot be undone. Sumit lunged forward, hands trembling, voice shaking. "Jenny, please. Don't do this. I'll leave my parents. I'll go anywhere with you. Just don't walk away." Jenny's eyes met his, calm but firm. She didn't flinch, didn't snap back. Her voice was soft but steady, carrying the weight of years spent negotiating love against impossible odds. "Sumit, you won't. You can't. And even if you did, I wouldn't want you to. I don't want our love to cost you your family or your peace." He stumbled back a step, disbelief mixing with desperation. "But we've survived everything. Fights, visas, misunderstandings. We can survive this too. Don't leave me here alone." Jenny inhaled, gripping the suitcase handle tighter. Her body language said it all. She had paused, hesitated, considered, and finally chosen herself. "I'm not leaving because I don't love you. I'm leaving because staying is breaking me. I can't keep pretending that one day everything will change. It won't. Not like we hoped." The room was thick with tension. Every micro-expression told a story. Sumit's wide-eyed panic, trembling fingers, the way his shoulders slumped under the weight of disbelief. Jenny's careful movements, slow steps toward the door, slight quiver in her lips, revealed exhaustion masked as composure. This was a clash not of anger but of necessity. Love versus self-preservation. Sumit's voice rose, cracked, faltered. "I'll do anything. I'll cut ties with my parents. I'll move to America with you. You don't have to leave. Please, Jenny, I'm begging you." Her hand lingered over the suitcase handle, then released. "No. You'll never leave your family. And I won't force you. I can't make you choose me over them. I've spent too long trying to fit into a life that wasn't mine. This moment, the tension is unbearable. Would she step into the taxi, or would some unseen force pull her back? The cameras didn't blink. Neither did the audience. Every second stretched, every heartbeat amplified. Sumit's hands reached for her again, desperate, pleading, but she stepped back, creating the final distance that words alone could never achieve. "I love you, but love alone isn't enough," she whispered. "And I have to survive too." The faint hum of the street outside grew louder as Jenny's attention shifted. Taxi had arrived. Its presence, innocuous to a passerby, carried the weight of finality for them. Sumit's panic escalated, feet pacing, voice rising, hands shaking, as he realized that her exit was imminent. Jenny took a single slow step toward the taxi, her body tense, eyes misted with tears, but her resolve unshaken. Sumit lunged forward instinctively, but even he could feel the inevitability in the air. Every glance, every trembling motion, every word hung between them like fragile glass. And then, with a deep, almost inaudible sigh, Jenny's hand touched the taxi door. What happens next? Will Sumit stop her, or has the moment finally passed, slipping away forever? Jenny's fingers gripped the taxi handle, each movement deliberate, heavy with meaning. Every step she took toward the car was a punctuation mark in a sentence written over a decade. Love, struggle, hope, and now finality. The suitcase wheels rattled against the cracked concrete, a staccato echo of years spent folding dreams into the corners of her life. Sumit's chest rose and fell rapidly, his voice barely steady. "Jenny, wait, please." He reached for her hand instinctively, a reflex born of years of attachment, but she gently pulled away. Every motion from her reinforced the boundary he had ignored too long, the quiet, painful truth that love sometimes can't survive obstacles no one can control. Camera captured micro-expressions that spoke louder than any words, the way his shoulders slumped, the tremor in his lips, the way his knees buckled slightly, betraying his mind's desperate scramble to process the impossible. Humans process loss in layers, starting with disbelief, moving to denial, and eventually hitting raw grief. Sumit was in that terrifying limbo, a mixture of panic and heartbreak that made every second stretch unbearably. Jenny paused at the taxi door, her hand lingering on the handle as if asking herself one last question. Every object she carried in her suitcase, the Ganesh statue, scarves, silver ring, was a fragment of a life she had invested in someone else, a collection of love and sacrifice that could never be replicated. And yet, the finality of her movements told Sumit everything. Her decision wasn't impulsive. It was survival. "Jenny, don't go." "I can fix this," Sumit pleaded, voice breaking, arms outstretched. His gaze flicked from her face to the suitcase, then to the taxi, mapping every symbol of the life he could lose in seconds. Attachment isn't just emotional, it's physical, behavioral, a reflexive response to shared years. His body screamed for connection, for reversal, but the logic of reality held him hostage. Jenny inhaled slowly, her lips quivering. She turned slightly to glance at Sumit, an expression of love, sorrow, and inevitability all at once. "I have to. I can't stay and keep losing myself," she said softly, a whisper that carried more weight than any argument. Taxi engine hummed faintly, a subtle reminder that the world outside didn't stop for heartbreak. Sumit took a step forward, desperate to bridge the gap, but the distance she had claimed with her resolve was almost impossible to cross. Would he stop her? Could he reach her in time, or has the door already closed on their shared life? Every second stretched, tension mounting, hearts racing both on screen and off. Jenny finally pushed the door open, stepping inside with a mixture of grief and relief. Sumit's hands hovered, inches from her, powerless against the reality of her choice. His voice cracked again, low and broken. "Jenny, I don't know how to let you go." Taxi sat, ready to move, a silent judge to the pain of separation. Every breath in the street, every tear, every heartbeat underscored the impossibility of reversing what was happening. The final goodbye was imminent, the room now a stage for heartbreak witnessed in excruciating real time. Jenny sank into the back seat of the taxi, her hands still clutching the suitcase handle. The engine's hum filled the space, a quiet soundtrack to the storm in her chest. Relief and guilt tangled together in a way that made her stomach twist. Every heartbeat reminded her that she had left someone she loved, someone who had loved her fiercely in return. But each pulse also reminded her why she had to leave, why staying had become unbearable. Her mind replayed every argument, every hopeful conversation, every quiet night spent wrestling with her own exhaustion. The decision wasn't sudden. It had been building, layer by layer, like sediment in a riverbed, until it became impossible to ignore. Leaving wasn't about a lack of love, it was about preserving the self she had almost lost in the relentless cycle of compromise. Meanwhile, outside, Sumit crumpled to his knees, sobs racking his body. His hands covered his face, then clutched at the air where Jenny had stood moments before. His breathing came in sharp, shallow bursts, chest heaving as the reality of finality hit him in waves. Every muscle, every micro-expression betrayed the deep shock and disbelief he couldn't yet process. Humans are wired to hold on, to try to repair the irreparable, and he was doing exactly that. Even as the world kept moving around him, camera lingered on the raw, unfiltered grief, capturing Sumit's inability to comprehend the absence of someone who had been a constant for years. There was no angry outburst, no accusatory words, just the quiet devastation of someone facing the tangible proof that love, no matter how intense, sometimes isn't enough. Who really wins when love ends like this? Is it the one who stays behind, crushed and desperate, or the one who leaves, carrying relief, heartbreak, and a fragile sense of freedom? The answer isn't simple, and neither perspective feels fair. Inside the taxi, Jenny pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching the streets blur past. Tears slipped quietly, unaccompanied by cries, as she allowed herself to feel the weight of what she had done. Self-preservation carried a bitter taste, and freedom came wrapped in sorrow. Leaving was a victory for her mental health, yes, but the cost was the raw pain etched across Sumit's face, the human cost of choosing oneself over the life you hoped you could share. Each passing kilometer reinforced the duality of the moment, the agony of those left behind, the complex relief of the one who leaves, and the unanswerable questions about loyalty, love, and the cost of boundaries. Jenny's journey had begun, but the echo of loss would follow both of them for years to come. Looking at the aftermath, it's clear why things unfolded the way they did. Sumit's reaction wasn't weakness, it was the culmination of patterns repeated over years. He's the kind of person who hopes that love alone will fix obstacles, who clings to the belief that promises and reassurances can overcome resistance from family or culture. That mindset works in moments, temporarily, but when the same challenges resurface again and again, hope can only carry someone so far. His panic, his inability to act decisively weren't failures of love. They were behavioral responses shaped by years of avoidance, delayed confrontations, and reliance on negotiation rather than action. Jenny, on the other hand, reached a point no amount of hope could overcome. Her decision to leave wasn't sudden anger or frustration, it was survival. Emotional exhaustion had piled up quietly, invisibly, until it became impossible to continue without sacrificing herself entirely. Every gift, every scarf, every small object she packed wasn't just a memory, it was a reminder of how deeply she had invested, and how much she had endured to make a relationship work in a reality that wasn't aligned with her needs. What we see here are two contrasting behaviors under pressure. Sumit wanted to save the relationship at any cost, even if that meant ignoring the repeated pain Jenny endured. Jenny, however, recognized that love without boundaries becomes destructive, and at some point, self-preservation has to take precedence. People cling to love for years because hope is intoxicating, but ignoring emotional health is a price few can afford to pay indefinitely. There's a lesson here for viewers watching in real time, recognizing when patterns are repeating, when compromise turns into self-erasure, and when decisive action, though painful, is necessary for one's well-being. Empathy doesn't require staying in a situation that chips away at your identity or mental health, even if it's someone you love. Did this relationship ever stand a chance? That's the question viewers can't ignore. Sumit's repeated inability to challenge family dynamics, to act on promises he had made, collided with Jenny's finite capacity to endure. The result was inevitable, a relationship torn apart not by lack of love, but by the friction of incompatible priorities and unspoken limits. Ultimately, both are human. Both made choices shaped by love, fear, and the weight of years spent trying to bridge impossible gaps. One chose self-preservation, the other faced the raw agony of helplessness. And in that collision, the audience sees not villains or heroes, but the painful, relatable truth of what happens when love meets limits it cannot overcome. As the dust settles, the emotional journey of Jenny and Sumit leaves a mark that lingers. From frantic packing to the final taxi ride, viewers witness not just a breakup but the collision of love, duty, and personal boundaries. Jenny's choice reminds us that love, no matter how deep, cannot thrive when it comes at the cost of one's peace and mental health. Sacrifice has limits, and recognizing them is not weakness, it's clarity. Sumit's heartbreak exposes the human tendency to hope endlessly, to believe that persistence can overcome patterns that have existed for years. His panic, tears, and desperate pleas highlight how attachment can cloud judgment, how repeated patterns can prevent decisive action, and how love without action sometimes only delays inevitable pain. Watching his struggle, audiences are forced to confront a question we rarely answer about ourselves. When do we cling and when do we let go? The objects Jenny carried, the Ganesh statue, scarves, and silver ring, aren't just souvenirs. They symbolize effort, compromise, and devotion. Their presence in the narrative is a subtle reminder that relationships are built on both emotional and practical investment. Yet when repeated obstacles persist, no amount of effort can rewrite reality. Boundaries become not only necessary but life-saving, and choosing oneself does not diminish love, it redefines it. Cultural pressures and family expectations add another layer of tension that made this story so compelling. Clash of deeply held traditions with the demands of cross-cultural love created a friction that even intense devotion could not smooth out. For viewers, it's a real-life example of how love doesn't exist in a vacuum and why navigating family, culture, and personal limits is often where the drama and heartbreak lies. And here's the question that will keep you thinking: how will the next couple navigate their own impossible choices? Will love bend under pressure, or will boundaries once again demand their toll? The 90-day fiancé drama doesn't stop here, and the echoes of Jenny and Sumit's story will be felt in the conflicts that follow. Every tear, every trembling step, every sob witnessed in Delhi is a lesson in the delicate balance of devotion and self-respect. Love isn't only about holding on, it's also about knowing when to release, even when it hurts more than we can measure. As Jenny's taxi fades into the distance, the story isn't truly over. It's a reminder that in love, endings are just as revealing as beginnings, and sometimes the hardest choices leave the deepest lessons. The next story is waiting, and if you thought this heartbreak was intense, the drama yet to come will challenge everything you thought you knew about loyalty, love, and sacrifice.